event, and it's the second last day, but yet the energy is still the same, and we have very interesting speakers with us and very, I would say, very informative things still to be there to learn. So yeah, it's going to be very fun and excitement. By that time people join in, I would love to know, how are you celebrating Navratri? Today it's Ashtami, so did you do something special? Aaj kuch naya tha, and it's a Sunday as well. So yes. So today we have a very special guest, and she'll be here for the third time on our platform, and every time she comes, it is a blessing for all the audience and especially for me. We have so much to learn from her, and not just learn but understand how experience looks like, and what experience makes you calculate, and how experience makes you calculative and learn it. So yes. Okay, so a little fact about the day 8. So the day 8 is known as Ashtami, which is 8th day, Ashtami. And by today, a lot of people open their fast and have a small puja at their houses. And day 8, we have the color purple. So yes, we have wearing purple today. So that's a little information about day 8. Okay, so before I invite the guest, a little activity for all of you. Please let me know, from which city do you belong to? Which city, and if you're not from India, then which country? Which city or country do you belong to? And if you have a question as an architecture student, we are open to all of them. So just come and write them on in the comment section. Which city or country do you belong to? Everyone who's joining in, kahan se ho aap? Which city or country do you belong to? We have a very small activity, so yeah, let's shoot it. Okay, so Ikara is from Pakistan. Okay, somebody wants to ask me, I want to ask you, MEP is better or architecture is better? It is completely your interest. Where does your interest takes you to? And there is no scale to understand which profession is better. Badlapur, India. Hi. I'm from okay. So today's session, the topic is fostering human interaction in design. So that's today's topic, and we have Anupama ma'am with us again on board, and I'm very excited to have her. For me, she's a perfect example of how an experienced person looks, and she's somebody who gives the real insights of the topics that are discussed with her. So yeah, I hope you all are as excited as me. So let's add her to our session. What is the most important thing to know as a student? Hi Sham. I would say the most important thing to know as an architecture student, is to first very much understand what architecture is all about, and start observing things around you. Start observing how general people and not architects, react and respond to the surroundings and respond to buildings, and start understanding and start understanding the philosophy of architects who are practicing, and start reading a lot about the buildings, the architects and people who are in practice, and start understanding their philosophy. And once you start to know how they think, how they follow the design philosophies, you're good to go. And I think that's the most important thing to understand as a student. And please start embracing every process that you do in architecture school. Architecture school में जो भी कर रहे हो, just understand well उस चीज़ का reason समझो, that why are you doing this, and start embracing and loving the journey. So I have invited Anupama ma'am to the session. She will be joining us very soon, I guess. Till the time, if you have any questions, I'm taking the questions. Ma'am, I'm not able to see you. You need to accept the request. I've sent you a request. You need to accept it. Can't find the request. Okay, so if you're not able to find the request, you can send me a request to be a part of this live, and then I'll be able to add you. Okay, so I think there's a little Instagram glitch and I have to... Okay, I have it. Hi Ravi, how are you?
Is it working?
Hi ma'am.
Hi Bhavna, how are you?
Yes. I'm good.
I'm fine. I was very fine, but I got anxious that I wasn't managing to enter. Since, as you know very well, that I'm not so well versed with all of this.
No, it's always troubling me with this. I mean, everybody's having some or the other issue to once join it. So maybe it's an Instagram
Anyway,
glitch.
So how have you been, Bhavna?
So, I'm really nice, and thank you so much for being a part of this Navratri Design Sangam. And first of all, happy Navratri, happy Ashtami.
Thank you, and same to you and to everybody who's joined us today. How come you're working so hard all the days? Aren't you going out and doing Garba and or Durga Puja or anything? Are you just busy working?
Yeah, have a conversation. So a lot of people come join the session post Garba as well.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That is why we kept the session at 9 p.m. so that everybody's done and free from Garba, as well as we have our fast and we're fasting every day. So all the food, everything is done. Like finally at night, Navratri is usually the day gets over early because most of them are fasting.
These are the days I most miss India actually, but I haven't really been part of the Garba function so much. But of course, I was in Bombay. But we were, as Bengalis, very much looking forward to Durga Puja and meeting all our relatives and friends day after day, late nights. But I remember also it used to coincide with the exams, so it was always a bit of a conflict, you know. So yeah, nice to join you.
Yeah, we have all the. Okay, so before we start, I want to start on a very lighter note and want to know what makes Navratri special for you and what is something different that you do for Navratris?
I mean, I think it's the same as I suppose every other person celebrating would feel about these days, because these are days where you celebrate the divine Shakti, you know, the energy of women. I think one gets to see Durga in all these in all her splendor and invincibility, where you as women particularly, I think it always reminds us that even though society may see sometimes women as weaker, but actually Durga reminds us that when no one else can tackle the demon, when all others cannot, that's when the goddess is summoned. And I think it's a very, very powerful reminder, and I love all the things associated with it. So for me, this time is very special, and I think also I think Bengalis, you know, wherever they are in the world, I think because these are of course annual functions that bring us together, but behind all of this symbolism, there's a deeper meanings for all of us. And I think I'm sure across India, these days are really important somehow. And so wherever you are, I think this is the association. And for me, the association is exactly about the origin of whatever symbolism and stories are behind these celebrations. And that's the essence.
True, very well said. I mean, even especially, when I had this design Sangam, every day I'm learning about, learning about architecture and design is different. But I'm actually, understanding each day that, okay, which day is concerned with which goddess and what is the story behind it, what color is it associated with, what are the learnings about each day. So yeah, it is something that, you can really relate to about the Indian mythology and understandings. So this time I have a very special Navratri. It is extremely productive. I'm learning a lot.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. Yes. We have some. Okay, so we have some nice, sweet comments. Somebody says that she's my inspiration. It's been 10 years. I met her in a workshop.
What's the name?
It is Santoshi Suburaj.
Send me a picture of you on Instagram, so I'll recall immediately. I am thinking 10 years ago, what workshop? Maybe a ferrocement workshop it could have been that we have met.
Yeah. Okay. So for today, I have a very special topic, which is fostering human interaction and design. And the moment when I thought about this topic, I just had your name in my mind. That yeah, ma'am is going to help me with this topic. This is something that is so much, it's just the only person that I found for this topic was you. So I'm very excited for this one. Okay. So starting with my first question, how do you believe architects use design elements to evoke specific emotions in their structures?
Wow. I wouldn't want to speak for architects in general. I think it's easier to maybe begin by first of all saying that architecture has the potential to evoke. Tell me the whole formulation of your question again.
How do you believe architects use design elements to evoke specific emotions in their structures?
And I think, okay. So I think, first of all, architecture has the capacity to evoke emotions. It has also nature. Nature also has the capacity to evoke, so the way I would like to begin is humans are emotional beings, and while we do our normal functions, architecture has to solve a lot of normal problems and basic needs, very basic needs of shelter and functions, like you need a kitchen, a bathroom, and you need your utilities. So that's one aspect. But if you really look at what architecture has the potential to do, and there are many, the moment you look at architecture, which is not only about physical functions, say take the temples, take more social spaces, and you can look at our historical architecture, and you can see how then architecture has the addresses very timeless aspects. When architecture addresses functional requirements, it could be a very temporary thing, it could be very user specific. It's about all those, it's that dimension of day to day. But beyond that, and that's why I said also nature has the possibility. You can go to you can feel emotional, or you can have a whole range of emotional experiences, and not only emotional, also psychological well-being, and an element of surprise. These are different emotions: to be surprised, to feel uncomfortable, to feel like the space is so big that you feel lost in it, or to feel intimate, or to feel cozy, to feel safe, or to feel exposed. All of these things architecture can do. Architecture Gaston Bachelard, in his book The Poetics of Space, said that space has a capacity to reduce you to silence, and we have all experienced certain spaces where you feel very overwhelmed. And I think so, yeah, basically, architecture has the potential to do that. The humans who use these spaces have the potential to feel it, but how architects do that, what elements or what strategies they use, it's a whole huge, long series of lectures. So I don't want to really go there. I can just say I do try in my work also to be aware of going beyond the basic functions of, because those are just the louder needs, but the human being also needs those other psychological needs I mentioned. You need to look outside, you need to feel things, you need to feel good, you need a lot of things, and those are no less architectural requirements. They never get listed when clients give you a brief, and very often it's the architect's own aspiration to make sure that the architecture that they produce um, transcends the day-to-day needs. And when you manage to do that, I think architecture has the potential to become timeless. Like if you look at all our ancient buildings, um, there is look at all those, I mean, from stepwells to temples, and you just go into anything, it is so perfectly done that they till today are relevant. Look how many changes our contemporary buildings do not survive and remain relevant. So that means those architects who manage to, that the building is still there and people respect those buildings, it means they manage. So the only clue I would give there, what elements, I think it has a lot to do with purity of geometry and order, and nothing, no conflict between, all the, from the immaterial to material. When you manifest anything and materialize it, all the things, cross current and things which are not aligned with each other, they get shown. And when you still do that, your attention goes on to those things. But when you manage to solve everything, and the geometry, I can just give a hint that I believe that geometry and order that you bring in unites the spatial requirement and the material requirement of the material to manage gravity, to manage all the elements. So yeah, sorry, it's a long answer and a very, very deep question.
Yeah, but I mean, I was discussing this in few of the previous sessions also, that all the old buildings that are already made are made too much in respect of the atmosphere that they are made in, that still they are not old fashioned, and every user is still enjoying that essence of that
Because
building.
they respond to the timeless requirement of human beings, and in such an architecture, you don't have the feeling that, oh, like many architects in our times have a notion, often probably it's not even probably true, but there is a notion that those people are not architects, they will not understand what we are doing. But we understand. We can go to Ajanta Ellora, Kailash temple, you go into the stepwells, we understand because it's so clear what they did. Everybody relates to that. Everybody, it creates awe and respect, and people know how to use it also. They don't need instructions. And that's what they strike the common ground. And I think the deeper knowledge of human beings, as well as of architecture and of material and of space, they know that, you know.
So I have a little activity for you as well as for the audience. I would like the audience and you to share a favorite example of a building that successfully communicates strong message and a strong emotional message through architecture. So any favorite building that you think, is like just communicates emotion through architecture.
I do feel the stepwells for me are very, very intriguing. And I don't know about the message. The thing is with emotional thing, there is a different language. It's difficult to put in words, what you feel, but you feel that the same complexity of the universe and the existence, that you can enjoy a material aspect of something, or a spiritual aspect, or a social dimension. So all of those are addressed. When you looked at this step 12, it is an infrastructure, but it is a public space. But it has an intimacy of one child sitting on one step, but at the same time, it is a vast project, and that all those small details add up to a large whole. When you look at it from far, the textures and all that are only by the large gestures, but when you come closer and closer, then the details unfold. And I think there's too much in there, and it always intrigues you that there's so many of them all over the place, but there is something so fascinating that today people have much more access to development and tools and whatnot. But if you think about our ancestors, they did not solve just the infrastructure need of getting the water out. There's such a dramatic, celebratory way of treating that. It's just not today's day. Infrastructure looks very different. They look like it's something like in the back end you want to hide. And look at how they've done it here. So
an open question to the audience. Do you have any structure around the world, any structure or any particular kind of structure that you think has a particular emotion? So maybe we can talk about it. ऐसा कोई भी structure where you feel that there's a particular emotion in that structure or a building,
it could be also,
then we'll talk about
negative emotions, right? Claustrophobia.
Yeah, it can.
So many images.
So we have one which says Ajanta Ellora Caves. So what does yours say about those?
Mine?
Yeah,
I mean, they are absolutely fascinating. Caves. And especially for me, of course, the Ajanta, the paintings and all of that, but the process, the process of the dedication with which people produce architecture. I'm a person who deeply believes that the processes are the main thing. The process is everything. It's also the sacred thing which leads to that outcome. Imagine, I used to always imagine them doing the Kailash temple, and they have to start from the top of the rock. And how do you know when you're carving a floor whether that rock is going to be the right one? Or you see a lot of caves that they've started there, and then after some time it has been abandoned. Years of work have been abandoned because either the stone didn't go that far or whatever they anticipated. And I think what an amazing attitude to go on for hundreds of years working on upon the work of the previous architect or the craftsman who began, and how selfless and how dedicated is that, that you just go on. I think it's a great inspiration for all of us. And you talked about community and collective, in the beginning of your talk. I think that's the thing we have to see, that intergenerational collaboration, and to not start with your own idea, and to just be able to continue the work of the previous generation, and to first of all see what was good in it instead of dismissing them so easily. I find it's a lot of lessons to be taken. And of course, for me, that Kailash temple is obviously very, very fascinating. I've seen all of these things before I studied architecture, and there's a lot more to say, but I don't want to hijack your conversation. But whoever brought it up, I think it's a very good example. It's very impressive. The emotion is like, wow,
Then we have Jewish Museum. We have Lotus Temple in the comment section. And Berlin Holocaust Memorial.
Yes, and I think actually the Jewish Museum is also very interesting because the architect has deliberately created, instead of just representing what the Jews would have felt, which others cannot imagine if they are living in their comfort zone, they won't know what they went through. So he created, he deliberately found ways to make the viewer unsettled. there's a ramp, for example, and you don't have a reference to the walls on the side, so you don't realize the floor is suddenly going down. So you feel weird. But so there are things that you actually feel. But the thing is, these are emotions that are generated. But first is physically you feel unsettled, and it's deliberate. It's quite something to see what you can do with architecture. You know.
Okay, so yeah, that's the type of building that we had. Okay, okay. So the next, what role does color play in influencing the emotional response to a building or
Oh
space?
yeah, this is another thing. I think all of these aspects create an emotional response. Volume of space, the human scale, relationship, materials play a role, and of course color is a very big role too, because you can see the difference between a black and white picture and a color. The moment there's a little red somewhere, your eyes will go there first. And I think so, yeah, colors. I mean, I'm not the expert on color, but I have also studied color. I know that, in fact, even during the student years and thesis, I had been taken a lot of interest in color. But I believe yellow, for instance, is supposed to stimulate the mind. So children like that color, if you notice, when it stimulates the intellect. Blues and light, certain shades, they are very peaceful. They generate peace. A red gives energy. And there's of course so much. We all know what white is neutral, white, black, gray, but they also affect us and they reflect the light. So yeah, I mean, light is also another one. Colors can immediately, like if you see the Mill Owners Institute, you can see there that the conference
Hmm.
room has been painted green. I believe it is because green um, makes you have a different sense of time, like you have more time. Whereas being in a room which is red, it's very energetic, but you can't be there very, very long, because you have a different, actually the time feels like different, long and short. So apparently that's why red was used in the toilets, so people don't waste too much time there. And but you see a lot of buildings where, and especially people who are expert at children's spaces, or they have to build for the elderly and have serene spaces. So yeah, I think definitely colors. There's a lot to learn about colors, and I think also many people do it intuitively. You don't have to only learn it; you feel it also.
Yeah. Okay. So another small activity for all of us. I'll be I'll be saying the colors, and you need to tell me if I like. For example, if I say red building, so what exactly comes to your mind when I
Red
just say a
Fort
red
and Taj
building?
Mahal
Okay.
and Matri Mandir.
Okay. Red Fort and Taj. Okay. So it's open for the audience as well. Whatever color I say, you just need to tell me what building comes to your mind or what emotion does come to your mind. So the next is a yellow building.
I don't know. I can just think of materials more than buildings. I think of Jaisalmer sandstone.
Jaisalmer sandstone. Okay, and maybe a white building.
Loads. I don't know what. Most buildings are white. I would also say Taj Mahal there.
White building. I like a complete white building. It gives a lot of peace.
What I
Huh?
love about white,
So whether
white is one of my favorite colors, if one can call it a color, is because it can reflect all the different shades of the sun. The sun shines on it. Like if you look at Taj Mahal, and you see at different times of the day what the white building does. It actually shows the way light plays on it. And for architects, it's very interesting. See, we mostly make abstract models in white, across the world, because white allows you to show slight changes. It defines the form because it shows you the shade and the shadow so crisply that it enhances the form. So even if you it enhances its three dimensionality. So that's what I most like about white.
we have a lot of
Yeah.
building options in the audience also. People, Temple, White House, hospitals, Louvre, Dubai, White House again, Taj Mahal, and the Jewish Museum and Akshardham Temple. So we have a lot of them
Nice.
in the comment section. One, where does your imagination and emotions go when I say a black building?
I know that a lot of Zen monks deal with black on the inside, is what I've heard, and also black. I think black, it can be also soothing. Black, it also absorbs light, so in a way it doesn't have glare. But yeah, I know that in Pune, in that Osho campus, there's a black building that came to my mind, and I know that Shah Jahan had attempted the black reflection on the other side of the Taj Mahal.
Okay. So that's it about the colors. Just a small example I would like to tell. I was recently in Thailand. So I visited the old Phuket town. So old Phuket town is famous because we have a series of colorful houses on both the sides. All the colors, red, blue, pink, green, yellow, everything. And just because of the colors, people are so attached to that town. It's very far away from the actual city area, and people just visit that place, not just architects, everybody visits the place just to see the colorful buildings, the colorful
Nice.
houses that are.
And also, I want to say black and white are, because in the end, colors, if you're not talking about painting your surfaces, in pre-industrial times, most of the color came from the actual material. So, a lot of the South Indian temples are actually black because of the rock. They are blackish. They are so I didn't mention them because they're not jet black, but that's what the color of the granite is. The rock is that, and that's also black. Just like the Taj Mahal's white marble, it is white, but when you come close, the white has all these gray lines and black and all kinds of patterns on it. So it's not, nothing is that white, I mean, unless you paint, so, but still, yeah.
Yeah. You can switch on your
The
lights. I think there's
sun is
a
setting
little
here, but
dark
let's see, is
area.
it a bit too dark,
Yeah.
or we have to let it adjust? Maybe
Yeah. Now it's fine now.
this is better.
Yes. Yeah, this is better. Now I can see you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So the next question, are there any specific architectural styles or movements that you think are particularly effective for conveying emotions?
No, I think no, I think first of all, I don't like to talk so much in terms of styles, I would rather say, like, when you see this modernist movement or the international style, they called it that way. Again, it depends on the architect. There's George Nakashima. Actually, I should mention Antonin Raymond, who did the first concrete building, Golconda, in Pondicherry. He did a very, very sensitive thing, including landscape. But there are so many other examples of modernism where the way it's made or the standardized elements and its repetition could be the defining element. So I think it also always within a style, it depends on the architect. Le Corbusier, he used color, or he used very artistic, very personalized gestures to break repetition, because repetition can get also oppressive. But many other architects did not at that time detect the danger of that sort of a thing being taken to even bigger heights and much more massive facades being just, curtain walls, just steel glass. If it goes on and on, so I don't think the style is the defining thing. It's like how you actually, what the architect actually did. And within an architect's work, you also find there are various buildings in which they were more or less successful, or, so I don't like so much to generalize, I think.
Okay. So now when we're talking about Navratri and Indian culture, I would like to know that do you think the Indian culture, the Indian cultural factors influence the emotions and the emotional aspect of the interpretation of architecture?
I think India's vibrant culture is the very fact that it is still alive. People have still connection to the roots. Like many places I visit, I find, whether how people continue to dress, how much ever you get exposed to global, influences. And if people dress, even if women wear more contemporary, like let's say, not necessarily Indian clothes, they don't do it at the cost of the Indian ones, or when you like food wise also, now you can get cuisine of everywhere, but people are still rooted to their own. People eat their khichidis and wear their saris, and I think Indian culture is not. It had there is a I see it that way. There is something of a timeless quality in it that even when other things are modern, things are introduced parallel, the traditional thing continues to be widespread used, and because that is the atmosphere, I think it's really good for also architects, like all other. Look at Indian music. Everybody listens to everybody. The classical one is very widespread, as much as the modern young music is drawing from so many influences, but also absorbing and building upon the tradition. And I think that's a fantastic situation we have. And I think in architecture we also have it. Actually, I think people do realize that same value in architecture, but I think we have, due to our rapid urbanization, and we've got such a lot of pressing challenges and issues, that a lot of the work is outsourced to factors beyond the architects, the developers, the whole speculation with land, the unaffordability of plots, and so on. There is a very complex thing, but I think it has to do with all that factors, that our population, our capacity to invest in our urbanization, all of that I see every time I come to India. I see so much going on. So I always hope that we are going to steer, uh, that urbanization a good way. And I definitely think we've grown up in incredible spaces. A simple thing such as daylight. You go across the world and they find it amazing if your building is daylight. And I tell them we all have grown up in daylight. I've never had most schools, colleges, or wherever you go, we've grown up in daylight. And then you go out and then you see it's a luxury. Most of the Indian schools, they know about sun path diagram, and they know about, I hope, am I right that they know, or don't you know by now? Because my German students and sorry,
it's the first thing that
exactly.
we are taught as architecture students.
So in a lot of the schools outside of India, I've been teaching in, and they don't know these. Some people know, and it's not something that everybody knows widespread about basics like that. So I just love that thing, and I think we take it for granted. Because we still have the awe, of, the due to the post-colonial history.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot more we can build upon from our own culture is rich enough, diverse enough. There's so much built there.
Very well said. I mean, and I too, embrace how since like our architecture school, we have been learning about the Indian buildings and the philosophy, how it is designed, and what the architects must have thought behind the designs and the spaces that have been divided. And still we can, embrace how well they were done with respect to the Indian
One
culture.
of the things I like in buildings in India, and I really enjoy, is the very fact that most of our buildings, widespread, have not been fully air conditioned. So as a result, all the transition spaces, arcades, or before you enter, you have places to hang out and sit, and there is not such a harsh inside outside situation. And in many ways, it's, when it's raining, or you sit in a certain balcony and you can enjoy the changing weather. And in many, many places, if you look at contemporary architecture, very basic things like that are being ignored. And I think, I hope that in India we will see the value of all these spaces, because in the end, if we don't, I think our buildings will be short-lived. I think we have to think long-term. That's the best way to invest resources,
I mean, I appreciate now these days when I'm going through the current, architects, that what practicing and what are the kind of buildings that they're making. Still, there are a lot of architects and young students also who are still practicing and still want to practice the traditional architecture, the way our old buildings are designed and the old concepts that have been used. Everybody is not running behind modernism and
we have to also be careful that we don't make a mockery out of how those buildings look, in terms of just getting that same facade, or you know what I mean. It's something that if you just look fleetingly, you can see, okay, that is traditional, that is modern, because of the contrast of the crafts, the ornament. But there's so much more. Sometimes these ornamentation and this refinement that has been given to with so much love, so much time, those details, let's not be swayed by the details. Let's look at the deeper values of all those buildings, and the fact that those old buildings, the way they have been created, it allows easy adaptation, for other uses too.
True, exactly. And yeah, but yeah, I still see the essence of the usability and the concept that we learn in school. Still, people are practicing it. And
do you learn the Indian history? Do we still do? We used to learn those days from Bannister Fletcher. We were taught, we were taught Roman history, the buildings, Greek, Egyptian, all that.
I still taught that in architecture college. We have history of architecture, and we've taught all the architecture style, history, and the
and also then there are study tours. I think most schools take people to see the actual buildings. Yeah, there's so much to see.
Yeah.
And be inspired by.
That experience as an architecture student.
Yeah.
It's a lot to learn. Yeah. I'll see if we have any questions from the audience. We'll take some. You can write your questions in the chat box. We have a comment which says, I highly agreed with ma'am about how sustainable we have to be in terms of design. Okay, that is there. And I missed few of them while we were discussing. That's what. Hinduism is not a religion; it's a way of living. This is the culture, the daily and discrete activities. Okay, okay, it's just a comment. Okay, so somebody is asking, can you tell more about the temple architecture and how do architects, okay, can you tell more about temple architecture of India and the emotions that they
think one
deliver?
of the first interesting things the temples in South India, for example, if because there's so many different things about temples, but most of the temples, at least if you compare it with the church, okay, for example, where there is a hall, in the case of a church as a main large congregation place, I found it very interesting, which may reflect something about Hinduism's, dharma, the Hindu dharma, like it was rightly said. The temples have a very, very small garbhagriha. There's this very small room in the inside, and it is very much, it's not a thing where all have to go together. but each one goes, the scale comes down from the external, the entrance point. There are layers and doors, and a series of the journey is expressed from outside, from the street. You get into the temple, then there are layers where there are shops and little commercial sort of things. Then you go inner and inner. So there's a whole journey that takes you to your own self. And then there's another layer where people may sing and meet and so on. And then you may come only up to there. Of course, you will go in, and then there's a last round where you go around the deity, and right inside is the where you have your darshan, and that is a very one-to-one kind of thing. And I just love how these temples handle the journey through various scales. So when you're very far, you can see, and in the South Indian temples, they have a gopuram where the different gates in each of those series of spaces are also celebrated through this entrance gateway called gopuram, and then it's marked that you're going one step inside another. It's like a layers of the onion that are going from the outside and giving you a little time in the journey, not just abruptly open a door and you're there. I love this point about temples. And another temple I found very, very interesting how the architect handled it is the Shore Temple in Mahabalipuram, because normally temples have to face the east. And there, the main shrine, if it would face the east, it would have faced the sea. But the entrance is on the other side. So they had to create another shrine. So there are two, tips, and they have been set off. So normally temples are so symmetrical. And here you have a very interesting composition so that both can be seen. The main deity and the entrance, beautifully handled by an architect. So even if you look at those temples in real time, if you go back and imagine in that time, how was the process of its creation, and somebody was there taking those decisions. Although they have very clear manuals about temple architecture and what they were meant to follow in the different regions, but still there is so much. Nowadays people feel that if someone gives a guideline, what should the architect do? Where is our creativity? But it's not like that. You go to the Shore Temple and you see that the very fact that architecture is in a specific spot, it'll come with the topography, it'll come with its climatic data, it'll come with the sun's orientation on it, and the architect has to still do so much, because in the end architecture is always custom made. So there's so even in the temples, I think we often, because it's all so uniform language, or you relate to something so perfectly solved, that many people don't realize that there was a stapati for this project and it was continued beyond their lifetime and seamlessly continued and completed.
So I think that's a very well note by which we can end. We've actually understood the entire temple architecture in this session, and that's great. I mean, it's something that was the need of the day.
And also what I also like, I have to just say one thing to end, because again, given the timing of Durga Puja, if you look, the temples are of all these Shakti goddesses, particularly, there's no time to really talk about the specific, those kind of temples. But even if you go to the temple, it is so silent and subtle in the background, the temple. And I believe architecture should be like that. When you look at it from far, you see that iconic form. But when you are inside the space, and as you go through the journey and enter the space, you are so engaged with actually what you came to do. You don't think of how is the temple design. If you're sitting and leaning on a pillar or going into the inside, you're not at all thinking about, oh my God, the architecture. You're not thinking of the architecture. That's good architecture, which is, for me, it is in the background so you can do what you came for. That is if you go to the temple, still the main thing is the darshan of the deity. It creates the ambience, and it's not so loud that you don't actually feel the central thing. And I think that's the main thing I take away from all of these buildings. And I would like my architecture also to be that way, that it doesn't have to overwhelm and compete with the life that it has to enable.
So we have few of the comments asking if you will be coming up with a workshop or a course in India. So I think I should ask them
Yes.
to
So
DM
you can talk to me on Instagram, and we can organize according to. I'd like to know what are the interests. I really enjoy co-creating things through workshops. We'll see. I do offer workshops quite often. Who has asked it? Are there several requests?
Few of them. One of it is Bhavika
Maybe
Kashyap.
through Instagram is not a bad place to continue the discussion, and I can sort of see how much there's interest to do something, and and when to time it.
Yeah. Yes. Last question we have: what is the relevance of Vastu Shastra in Indian architecture? I think that's whole together a session that has
Definitely, I think it's a very important session. But I think, like every book, it can be taken superficially, superstitiously, but also there are very deep things in it. But it only, you cannot be not believing in the whole purpose of it and then only be applying that for the sake of dogma. So, but I equally believe, we don't have time to give a long answer. I actually have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but I equally believe that even Neufert could be done as a dogma. Neufert, or how it's pronounced there. But yeah, any kind of tool, any kind of handbook can be misused as much as it could be used. That's what I would say.
True. Okay, I think that's it from the audience. So yes, the question that was asked was from Bhavika. So she's telling that she's from architecture school, Sushant school. So Bhavika, you can DM us.
Very lovely to have interacted with all of you, and thank you so much, Bhavna, to connect me. I feel homesick during Durga Puja days a bit, not only but often. And it's nice. It was a very nice, I think it's a great idea from you to do a series during these days. Although I was not expecting anybody to come, because I would say, why would they not be doing the festivities, on these days? But
a lot of people joining. Every day we have new audience, new topics to learn. So it was very fun for me.
yes.
But now we're just ending it. Like tomorrow we'll have
So
but it was very much
all the
fun
best,
for me as well.
and for everybody here, and for your family and friends, I wish you all very nice days of festivity. It's very important to celebrate. Very, very important to partake in happy functions, and keep those traditions evolving. All right. See you then. Have a nice evening.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Thank you.